Committee held on the 18th of February 2026. I can see that we have present Councillor Allison, Councillor Brogan. Do we have Councillor Matthew Buchanan? No, not present. We also have present Councillor Carmichael, Councillor Chalmers. Do we have Councillor Cooper? No, I don't see Councillor Cooper. We also have present Councillor Cowan, Councillor Devlin, Councillor Donnelly. I have apologies from Councillor Fagan. We have Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Ferguson Miller, Councillor Handibode, Councillor Horn, Councillor Hose. Do we have Councillor Lambie? No, he's not present. I have apologies from Councillor Loudon, and we have Councillor Toner substituting. I have apologies from Councillor Hugh MacDonald, and we have Councillor Dewar substituting. Do we have Councillor Leslie MacDonald present? No, we have apologies. We also have present Councillors McDougall, McGeever, Razak, Ross, Scott and Williams, and there are also a number of officers present today. I'll pass back to yourself for today's business, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move straight on to item number 1, which is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No, we'll move on to item number 2, and that's, oh, beg your pardon. Helen Toner. We'll just try and get her back. Helen, can you hear us at all?
She's not coming in at all. Shona, could you maybe see if you could speak to Andrew? Somebody said Matthew Buchanan as well. I don't see him.
Hi, we have a slight technical problem at the moment. Be with you in a few moments.
Councillor Brogan, could you request to speak, please, to see if you're able to come into the meeting?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thank you. Okay, so it's not.
Hi.
Hi, Helen.
That took longer than necessary. No, it's just clearing interest in agenda item 10. I'm personally involved with the Low Waters Community Group.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, thanks, Helen. Apologies for the issues there. We're going to move on to item number 2, which is minutes of the previous meeting. Can we approve these as a correct record?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Item number 3, which is minutes of recruitment committee held on 11th and 17th of November 2025 and 20th of January 26. And they're on pages 19 to 24 of your pack, and to confirm that these can be approved as a correct record.
Agreed.
Okay. And now we're moving on to item number 4, which is monitoring items. And item number 4 is revenue budget monitoring 2025-2026 and probable outturn, which is pages 25 to 36. And if we can ask Lorraine to speak to the report.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon. Item 4 then on page 25 is the period 10 revenue report for the resource, and that takes us to the end of December 2025. Section 5 of the report details the financial implications and notes the outturn of the probable outcome of the probable outturn exercise, which is a forecast underspend of 578,000, and that's after a transfer to reserves approved by Executive Committee for a contribution to the insurance fund, and that's to help us manage the increase in premiums moving forward. The reason for the underspend in the resource as a whole is the reduced costs associated with empty property relief, which is a demand-led budget line. Section 5.3 of your paper notes that this underspend position includes a £40,000 commitment to support local food banks, which has been possible due to an underspend in the community grants budget line itself. Appendix A of your report notes the high-level summary of the services, and that's on page 28, while appendices B to I provide the subjective analysis across those individual services. Included in the appendices are proposed budget environments as appropriate in relation to individual subjective lines or across services, or indeed across resources if appropriate. The appendices also show the actual spend position to the end of December for your information. If I can take you back to section 2 of the report and ask that the probable outturn forecast to the 31st of March of an underspend after approved transfers to reserves be noted, and that the proposed budget environments be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Are there any questions? No, not seeing any questions. Thank you. We'll move on to... oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Can we agree the recommendations on page 25?
Agreed.
Okay, and we'll move on to item number 5. It's the capital budget monitoring 2025-2026, pages 37 to 40 in your report. And once again, we're going to Lorraine O'Hagan to speak to the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5 then on page 37 is the capital report, as you said, Chair, and again takes us to the end of the end of the calendar year, end of December 2025. Section 5 notes the budget of 645,000, which is unchanged since the last report to this committee, and Section 5.2 notes that the forecast for the year is £645,000. As at the end of December, we had spend of £280,000, and the details are noted in Appendix A, which is on page 39, just giving you a bit of a feel for how the programme has been made up in the year. If I can refer you back to Section 2 and just ask that the Finance and Corporate Resources Capital Programme of £645,000 and the forecast expenditure of £645,000 is noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. Can we agree to the recommendations on page 37?
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, which is Finance and Corporate Resources Workforce Monitoring, 1st of October to 31st of December 2025, pages 41 to 48 in your pack. And if I can ask Michelle Milne to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide employment information for the period mentioned by the Chair relating to Finance and Corporate Resources, and this is a standard report that comes to Finance and Corporate Resources Committee. At section 4 in the report, you will see that the resource absence figure for December 25 was 4.7%. This figure has increased by 0.2% when compared to the previous month and is 2.8% lower than the council-wide figure. Turn the page over to page 42, I'll highlight a few areas in the report. In terms of occupational health at section 4.2, you will see that there were 75 referrals made during this period, and that represented an increase of 19 when compared to the same period last year. At 4.3, there were no accident or incidents recorded during this period, and the disciplinary grievance and dignity at work information is contained at section 4.4. At section 4.5, you'll see the analysis of leavers. There were 8 leavers during this period who were eligible for an interview. This figure had increased by 2, and 1 exit interview was conducted during this period, although all employees were offered this facility. I would refer committee back to the recommendations to note the workforce monitoring information for finance and corporate resources for that period, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. Can we agree to the recommendations on page 48?
Agreed.
And moving on to item number 7, which is council-wide workforce monitoring, 1st of October to 31st of December 2025, and it's pages 49 to 68 on your pack. And once again, I'm going to ask Michelle Milne to speak to the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Similar to the previous report, this is a workforce monitoring report for the period October to December, and this is council-wide as opposed to resource-specific. Again, just at the bottom of page 49, in terms of section 4, I'll just take committee through some absence information. The council's absence rate for December 25, which is in Appendix 1, is 7.5%, which represents a 0.5% increase when compared to the previous month, and an increase of 0.5% when compared to December 24. And you'll see in the section under that, there is a breakdown. The APTC absence rate is increased by 0.2%, the teachers' absence figure increased by 0.2%, and manual workers figure has increased by 1%. And at the very bottom of page 49, you'll see that the annual average absence rate for the council for 25-26 is 6.1%. Turning over the page to page 50, at the top of the page you will see that psychological conditions have increased by 996 days, and respiratory conditions during that period increased by 610 days. In terms of managing absence, there is a focus on absence in terms of review of the data, looking at the cases, support to both managers and employees, keeping a close eye on the referrals and the supports that employees do need during this period, and also monthly meetings with managers and heads of service just in terms of the cases and the resources. In terms of section 5, occupational health, during the period there were 477 employees referred for medical examination, which is an increase of 71. 495 employees attended physiotherapy treatment. That was a decrease of 2 when compared to the same period last year. Of the 495 employees referred, 70% of employees remained at work whilst undertaking treatment, and during the period 532 employees were referred to the Employee Support Officer. Just in the 4th bullet point there, 175 employees were referred to PAM Assist Counselling Service during this period, showing a decrease of 12 when compared to the same period last year. And just at the bottom of that section, personal reasons accounted for 18% of the referrals made. 14 were made for work-related reasons and 68 were for other reasons. And that is declared by the employees themselves. And these supports are put in place to support employees and are made up very much of self-referrals and need depending on the employee. In terms of section 6, at the first bullet point, you'll see during that period there were 635 accidents and incidents recorded, and those have all been investigated. and of these, 115 were minor accidents and incidents. Moving on to the top of page 51, during that period you'll see there's a summary there of the disciplines, grievances, dignity at work scenario referrals that were made to mediation during that period. And in section 8, 110 leavers were eligible for exit interviews of the 15,447 employees that were in post. The turnover figure for that period was 0.7%. And at section 8.2, you'll see that 24 exit interviews were conducted. Again, this is voluntary as encouraged. Of the 110, 24 employees participated in that process. And then you'll see at the bottom of page 51, in terms of recruitment monitoring information, during that period there were 4,544 applications that were received and completed by potential employees. And of those applicants, 271 declared themselves as disabled and 10 from that group were appointed. 555 were in the BME background category and 15 were appointed. And in terms of ex-armed forces, 21 were shortlisted and 1 was appointed during that period. I would refer committee back to the recommendations contained within this report, that the following information on workforce monitoring be noted, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. We do have questions. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Hope this is not. It's on point 9.1, Michelle. Thank you for the report that you've just outlined. But on 9.1, as you know, one of the things for me is women in the workforce, and you don't have the figures broken down. Could I ask that the figures are broken down for recruitment on male, female coming forward? It's good that we've now got the black and ethnic minorities and we've got the disabled figures, but it would be good if we could have it on women and male as well. There, Michelle, thank you.
Yes, happy to answer that, and I know you've asked similar questions before. There is some information in Appendix 14 in terms of the male-female categories, in terms of the breakdown of appointments, but I would also say, as you know yourself, through our EDI forum, we are looking at expanding the work that we are doing around disabled, BME, female, veterans, in terms of capturing that information, and we have action plans in place and are growing them in terms of doing as much as we can around any of those groups.
Do you want to come back in, Mary?
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Jackie's just going to come in and answer as well.
Thanks, Councillor Donnelly. As Michelle says, Appendix 14 provides that information. It's probably worth just actually mentioning what it does say in Appendix 14. You can see there that of those appointed in the time period that we're talking about, 71% of those appointments were female and 29 were male. Now, obviously, depending on the jobs that we're recruiting for and the particular times in the year, that figure will change. But that information does show the level of appointment to females and males. Thanks.
Mary, are you coming back in?
Yeah, just to quickly say that you obviously know my focus is to see where we're increasing in the female workforce and where are we in that in terms of 50-50. So that's where my head is, and that's what I'm looking for, to see where how our recruitment is in terms of 50-50 within the workforce. Thank you, but thank you both for your answers.
Okay, there are no more questions, so I'm going to ask, can we agree the recommendations on page 49? Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, Treasury Management Activity 25-26. It's the third quarter review and it's pages 69 to 76 in your pack. And I'm going to ask Lorraine O'Hagan to speak to the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So item 8 then is the Treasury Management Activity Report, again taking us to the end of December 2025. It's the regular report, and in section 4 you can see a little bit of an update there in terms of the base rate. If I move on to section 5, you can see the detail of the debt management and borrowing strategy, and table 1 particularly shows the position on borrowing for the year to the end of quarter 3. We've taken no long-term borrowing so far, and we've used cash balances to fund capital spend. We have also taken some short-term borrowing for cash flow purposes only. And as we normally report, we continue to make the most appropriate form of borrowing depending on the prevailing interest rates at the point in time, taking into consideration any difference between investment earnings and debt costs, which do remain high. So we're keeping an eye on that as we go through the year. In terms of investment activity, we've got details there in section 6 of your report, and that's about where we deposit our funds. So prior to depositing funds, we do make sure the necessary institutions are considered safe. We also make sure we can access funds when we need to, and that they're working well for the council. So as I mentioned, part of the deposit methodology includes consideration of credit ratings, and also rating watches, as well as working with our financial advisors. So table 2 of your report at the top of page 71 shows where we have deposited money so far this year. And in line with previous reports, we've deposited most of our funds, almost 99%, in the UK Government Deposit Facility and other local authorities, with the balance being made in the Bank of Scotland call account for instant or easy access. Section 7 of your report continues the theme of managing risks and notes that the annual investment strategy back in February last year detailed how risk is managed and what investments are permitted. Tables 3 to 5 then in your report details the deposits and credit ratings of the banks and building societies that we've used up to the end of December, and the tables show that as usual we use counterparties of a very high credit quality. Almost again 99% of our deposits are made with counterparties of very high credit quality, with the remaining 1% in our instant access call account. Section 8 covers the plans for the next quarter, and it's pretty much more of the same in terms of the approach we'll take. So we'll continue to deposit any money with institutions where the credit ratings are consistent with the Council's approved criteria, and any deposits will continue to be placed with the DMO and other UK local authorities. Section 9 of your report covers the prudential indicators, which we are required to report to you on a regular basis. I would note that in table 6, we've not breached the operational and authorised limits in terms of the level of external debt. And in table 7, we're again within the limits set in terms of the timelines for our debts maturing, so that they don't all mature at the one time. If I can take you back to section 2 of the report and just ask that the contents of the report are noted. Thank you.
Thank you. I am not seeing any questions, so can we agree to the recommendations on page 69?
Agreed.
Thank you. And we are now moving on to item 9, and it's items for decision. Revenue collection and approval for write-offs, pages 77 to 84 in your pack. And if I can ask Craig Ferguson to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. The report advises committee of the collection performance at the end of December last year, gives an update in respect to the business rates incentivisation scheme, also seeks approval for write-offs, and also updates committee on the legislative and service position regarding the award of non-domestic rates empty property relief. Beginning with section 4, and that covers the current collection performance. The first table in appendix 1 details the collection performance for council tax, non-domestic rates and sundry debt. Council tax is marginally behind target at 0.04%, non-domestic rates ahead of target by 0.2%, and sundry debt behind by 0.2%. In terms of the arrears collection performance, that's detailed in the second table of Appendix 1. In terms of council tax, we're currently ahead of target, and that's also positioned for non-domestic rates, with sundry debt marginally behind target. Section 6 gives an update in respect to the non-domestic rates incentivisation scheme, and notes that buoyancy at the end of December was negative 0.24%. Moving on to section 7, that details the proposals for write-off for committee's consideration today. This includes council tax, non-domestic rates and sundry debt. Moving on to section 8 in the report. Following a routine inquiry to the Scottish Government from our local authority, it's identified with the Scottish Government that due to legislative oversight, Council had no legal basis to apply non-domestic rates charged against unoccupied properties since April 23, when empty property relief was devolved to councils. As soon as we were notified of this in November last year, immediate action was taken, as dated at 8.2. We suspended billing and collection any new accounts where an empty property relief application had been made. We also suspended recovery action for those properties that have been awarded empty property relief since the 1st of April 23. The position required Scottish Government to introduce new legislation that would then provide the legal basis for councils to levy non-domestic rates for empty properties, which also have a retrospective effect from April 23. So it followed then the emergency bill for non-domestic rates was passed by the Scottish Parliament on 27th of November 25, received royal assent on the 7th of January 26 and came into force on the 8th of January. So from an operational perspective, the team have now processed all outstanding applications and also updated liabilities for accounts that were suspended awaiting the new Act. Recovery is also recommenced on bills with any outstanding empty relief charges due. And also for completeness, where summary warrants have been obtained, new warrants will be sought with no attempt made to force existing warrants. And for our committee, back to the recommendations, the performance in respect of revenue be noted. The current collection in respect of NDRS is also noted. The write-offs noted at bullet point 3 are approved by committee, and also at bullet point 4, that the legislative and service position regarding the award of non-domestic rates empty property relief is noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the report. And we do have a question. Andrea Cowan. Again, we're having some technical difficulty here. We're just trying to get Andrea into the meeting.
Thanks, Chair. It's a very quick question, probably quite a silly one, as is my usual. Often note that amongst the debts we write off for council tax are relating to the estates of the deceased. I'm just wondering, do we ever, under any circumstances, pursue those debts against an estate? Because presumably some estates will have, funds available for us to recover that debt, or is there a kind of a goodwill element in terms of we wouldn't seek it against, people who clearly are unable to pay and it would affect their inheritance of a house or something?
No, certainly we will look to recover funds if there are funds available through an individual's estate. Goodwill wouldn't feature as part of that approach. Thanks.
To say thanks very much.
Andy, are you able to hear?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Sundry debt total of £132, £546.
Andy, can you repeat the question? We didn't have you at the beginning.
Oh, sorry. Wait to get it again. Right, I'm on sundry debts. Okay. On page 79, section 7.5. All right, a total debt of £132,546.05. If you turn to page 81, it gives you, page 83, on section rechargeable repairs, capital repairs, a total of £70,941. Right. The rechargeable rechargeable repairs, I assume, are for possibly housing repairs, etc. Or can someone highlight what the difference is between the rechargeable repairs and capital repairs, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, there is obviously a distinction between the two types of repairs. Rechargeable repairs tend to be kind of smaller in value, for example, replacement locks or perhaps repairing damage to our door, whereas capital repairs tend to be more significant in value and obviously more to the actual infrastructure of the properties concerned.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you again.
We're going to try and get Andrea Cowan in.
Hi, hello. Hi, can you hear me this time? Yeah, I've had to log out and back in, which there seems to be some sort of glitch today. But thanks for having me back in. Thanks for the report, Craig. I just wanted to ask a wee question around the school meal debt, if that's okay. Where the write-off for school meal debt this time round is £10,000. But I'm really looking at the numbers beside that it covers 48 pupils. And on the assumption that some of these pupils will be from the same family, I'm just wondering if we have a mechanism in place to signpost these families if we're finding that the same families are repeatedly accruing debt, just to make sure that they're not slipping through the net and that they're being offered some help through Money Matters or CAB perhaps. So really just to see if we have that sort of mechanism and that sort of service to offer. And the other thing that I wondered was if a family has children at multiple establishments, so perhaps at nursery and primary or nursery, primary and high school, can we see if that same family is running up debt, you know, in all different establishments? I'm just wondering how much information is shared, because I'd hate to think, you know, that there were people there that could be offered some support that are missing out. So that was really my question. Thanks.
Thank you for the points there. Certainly education do offer, operate a fairly robust process across all the schools in supporting families, where obviously there could be scenarios where, you know, children are starting to accrue a level of debt, and certainly the head teachers have got a very prominent role in managing that, in supporting families, and also in signposting families to the required support, and that may include Money Matters, as you suggest. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay, thank you. We have no more questions. So I am going to ask if we can approve the recommendations on page 77.
Okay.
Thank you. And we're moving on to item number 10, which is the Community Can Do Fund applications, pages 85 to 90 in your pack. And I'm going to ask Jennifer Kerr to speak to the report. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. Can everyone hear me okay? Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Jennifer Kerr. I'm delighted to present the very first Community Can Do Fund report and advise committee members on the recommendation of the scoring panel. So the recommendation is that you would consider for approval the application set out in Appendix 1.
Excuse me, sorry, can I just interrupt? Councillor Toner, can you possibly leave the meeting at this time? She's gone. Sorry, if you want to continue.
Okay, sure. And that additional one-off grants be awarded to Citizens Advice Bureau as outlined in section 5.6 of the report. The Community Can Do Fund is a new fund and a first-time fund for South Lanarkshire Council. It was established during the Third Sector Partnership Review as an opportunity to offer fair and open and transparent mechanism to award medium-sized grants to third sector organisations. The fund was established a total fund of £200,000 and was open for quite a long period of applications across December and January. We received 92 applications and over 1.12 million 1.1 million worth of applications to a £200,000 fund. So it was highly competitive and very, very popular. The scoring and the application process is set out in section 4. And I would note that the outcomes that were funded by the grant process are those of the council plan. And the scoring criteria at 4.4 are how each member of the panel looked at each application. And the panel included both members of the community engagement team, as well as each application was also scored by a member of Voluntary Action South Lanarkshire, VASLAN, to ensure that there were sort of two sets of professional views on each of the applications. Section 5 outlines the results and notes the results at Appendix 1 that we're requesting approval for, but also notes that within the applications, the ability to complete a good quality application became very important with that high volume. And despite offers of support to support organisations to complete applications, we found a lot of support to be needing, and are working with VASLAN to look at potential surgeries or support for completing funding applications. Even some of the basics would have been beneficial. And this is important to our community organisations, not just for our own grants, but if they're to apply to other organisations for grants as well. It's important that it's a skill to fill in funding applications, and especially when the funding market is very competitive as it is. 5.6 outlines that the review also introduced some direct awards for some organisations under certain circumstances, and the Citizens Advice Bureau are one of our groups of organisations in the third sector that will continue to receive direct award funding going forward. However, there was a reduction in their funding, and in recognition of this reduction and in order to ease the transition of a reduced amount of funding, despite the direct award, it's recommended that each CAB be offered a one-off further grant of £5,000 next year, just to make that a little bit easier for them to transition through. So I present Appendix 1 and would ask that the committee consider for approval the application set out in Appendix 1 and the additional grants to the Citizens Advice Bureaus. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Do we have any questions? Not seeing any questions. Can we approve the recommendations on page 85?
Agreed.
Councillor Toner, you can come back in for this part of the meeting. Moving on to item number 11, it's council standards, page 91 to 114 in your pack. And if I can invite Michelle Milne to speak to the report. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Chair. This report is on council standards, and it's to update the Finance and Corporate Committee of the revised corporate standards. You'll see at section 3 in the background at 3.3 that the standards cover communication and interaction with council customers and service users, and the expectations of employees when dealing with telephone, internet and face-to-face inquiries. And the review was undertaken to ensure that these standards remained fit for purpose, considering changes to working practices, increased digital contact, customer expectations around response times, and that continuous use of hybrid working arrangements. Turning over the page, at the top of page 92, you will also see at section 3.4 the outward facing element, that in terms of public facing contact methods and performance standards. And those are detailed in the bullet points under section 3.4. And you'll see the scope of the review at 3.5 was looking at internal and public-facing council standards and to refresh the content of those. You'll then see at section 4, the revised standards provide clearer expectations for both employees and customers, support consistency of service delivery across all services, and help reduce avoidable complaints arising from delays, any unclear communication or inconsistent practices. At section 4.3, you will see that the former corporate standards have been replaced with the new council standards in terms of the naming convention there. And at section 4.4, you'll see the 4 categories now contained within the council standards. Also, at the bottom of 4.4, you'll see that some of the new additions that have been introduced within the standards include communicating with others. Section 4.5, the public-facing contact methods and performance standards have also been refreshed to enhance the customer experience, improve responsiveness and ensure inclusivity across all services. It is intended, as described at 4.6, that the revised standards provide a clear framework for how the council interacts with the public and to support improved access to meet customer expectations. And at the bottom of page 92, the standards are underpinned by accessibility, transparency and professionalism in all customer interactions and help ensure that services are delivered in a fair and timely manner. These standards align with and reinforce the new council standards. Over on page 93, I wanted to highlight just at section 5.1 that we are going to continue to carry out an annual review of the council standards commencing in March 27, and that is going to be a review and verification annual exercise that we're going to continue to do to ensure online content remains accurate and accessible and the standards that are being applied are being worked to and adhered to. That review will also ensure that employees maintain these standards in any of their communications. And as normal, as detailed at section 5.3, there will be employee communications, reminders will be issued to ensure employees are aware of the requirements of the council standards. I refer committee back to the recommendations to note that the work that has been undertaken in terms of the review of the corporate standards be noted, and that the revised internal council standards and public-facing contact methods and performance standards at Appendix 1 and 2 are approved, and that the annual review of the council standards detailed in section 5 be noted. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Michelle. I am not seeing any questions. So can we agree the recommendations on page 91?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item number 12, and it's the flexible retirement policy update, pages 115 to 120. And again, Michelle, it's back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is a report that provides an update on the flexible retirement policy, and the purpose of this report is to advise committee on the proposal to update the Council's flexible retirement policy. You'll see at section 3, the flexible retirement policy is a discretionary policy that employers, we are one of those, may offer to their workforce to allow pension scheme members the option to flexibly retire. This allows them to access their pension and work at reduced capacity, which is essentially part-time in the role that they were in. The Council agreed on this discretion in 2007. You'll see at section 3.2 the current criteria that is in place as per the current policy. And then at 3.3, there is an update provided to committee that due to changes made during the last valuation of the Strathclyde Pension Fund, there was a calculation of employer strain on the fund costs that changed. Consequently, as a result of that, from the 1st of October 24, the number of flexible retirements incurring an employer strain on the fund increased, and it resulted in a proportionate increase in the number of requests that we weren't able to grant. On this basis, the Council has reviewed flexible retirement policy with a view to amending the criteria relating to employer cost. Over the page 116, just at section 4.1, you'll see the proposal is that the flexible retirement policy is updated with an amendment to criteria 4, as detailed in paragraph 3.2 above. That the amendment will allow all applications to be considered, and where those requests incur a reasonable employer cost, these would be granted. And there's a copy of the updated policy attached, and you'll see the updated section included at 2.4 in that document. I'd refer committee back to the recommendation, which is that the proposed updates to the flexible retirement policy and the local government pension scheme discretions policy be approved. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Michelle. There are no questions, but I can say from speaking to some members of staff that that's been a really welcome announcement, and they've been absolutely delighted that they're able to exercise it now, so thank you. We have no other questions, so can we agree the recommendations on page 115? Agreed. Item number 13, Common Good, which is the disposal of land at Backrow Cadswell Park, Hamilton, and that's pages 121 and 124 on your pack. And if I can ask Lorraine Hagan to speak to the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. This is a report, as Chair explained, on the proposed disposal of a piece of land at Backrow Cadzow Park in Hamilton. Section 4 of your report notes that our property services team have identified a piece of land that has been used by a third party currently as a private car park, but that piece of land actually belongs to Hamilton Common Good. The third party are looking to purchase the land with a value of £9,000, and as it's alienable land, it can be sold without seeking permission from the courts. The report seeking the approval of committee to progress with this sale, and if the report is agreed, then Property Services would look to carry out the due diligence in terms of the public consultation that would be required due to the Community Empowerment Bill, and if there are no representations, it's proposed that the sale would then proceed. However, if there are objections, then I'd be proposing to bring that back to yourselves as committee for your consideration. So if I can refer members back to the recommendations then in section 2 and ask that Property Services be authorised to proceed with the consultation on the proposed disposal of a small piece of land at Backrow Cadzow Park in Hamilton. And if there are no objections under the consultation, that Property Services are then authorised to proceed with the disposal of this piece of land. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions, so can we agree the recommendations on page 121?
Agreed.
Thank you. And now we're on to items for noting, and item number 14, and it is early retirement, voluntary severance and switch to, not easy to say, from the 1st of April to 30th of September 2025, and that's pages 125 to 130 in your pack. And if I can ask Michelle to speak to the report. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report, as just described by the Chair, is to provide an update on that activity around those three areas. You will see at section 4, I just wanted to highlight that during that period there have been no early retirements on the grounds of efficiency of the service, voluntary redundancy or voluntary severance during that period, nor have there been any requests for re-employment that have been made to the Council, and that is no change on the previous periods. At section 5, the committee will be aware of the terms of our ill health retirement in terms of the process around that. I'm just going to turn over to page 126 and just highlight a few areas of the report. And you'll see at 5.3, the table there, 28 of 49 applications of ill health were granted. That is an increase of 1 from the previous period last year. And as you will know, this is a statutory process that involves independent medical practitioners reviewing all of this information. In terms of the annual trend analysis at 5.5, you will see that in terms of that trend, we are partway through the year. Doubling that, we are likely to see similar figures when we get to the year-end figures on that when they are reported. And just at the bottom of the page, in terms of switch 2 in section 6, 27 employees through the switch 2 process, and that is a decrease of 9 when compared to the previous period. Just over the page, at page 127 at the top of that page, just in terms of the trend around that. In terms of this trend, it's sitting at 27, and that is likely, as it stands just now, to be less than was previously. And that will depend on potential budget considerations in terms of service reviews, etc. But those are all managed well within the Council. In terms of section 7, at 7.2, you'll see there's a summary there of the flexible retirements in that table, and there were 55 during that period. And as mentioned in the previous report, just at that bottom of that page, I'll not go over that again, just in terms of the changes to Strathclyde Pension Fund. That is just an update on that. And at the table at the bottom, you'll see, in terms of an annual trend analysis, there's 55, and that's probably likely to be similar to the previous year as well, in terms of the previous period. And again in section 8, in terms of employee implications, I have mentioned that in the previous report, but it's just to flag that it's also detailed in this report. And to take committee back to recommendations to approve the following recommendations, that the activity around those three areas is noted for that period. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, we're going to go to Councillor Devlin.
Michelle, it's just one wee question I wanted to ask. It's in relation to item 5, I know a wee while ago there was issues getting medical support for early retirement. I just wanted to know if that's improved, that's all.
Yes, we do monitor that on a regular basis, and that situation has improved. We continue to try to improve it. You're absolutely right, there is a dependency on getting up-to-date and accurate medical information so that the employee's application can really be properly considered. But we have a number of steps and processes in place in terms of chasing and requesting that information and getting that back.
Okay, we have no other questions, so can we agree the recommendations on page 125?
Agreed.
Okay, and we're now moving on to item number 15, which is urgent business. And there are no items of urgent business. So what I'm going to do is close the meeting. I'd like to thank you all for attending and for all the reports that have been submitted. Thank you.